All right, let's bring in Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky. Senator, great to have you with us. Just starting on that note, are you shocked at how red the entire country is when you look at that heat map and how widespread this is in the second wave?
I think that when you're looking at the incidence, it's important to know that, yes, we have 4 times more cases of COVID than we had in the spring, but we have half as many deaths. So the interesting thing is when you look at the mortality is down to about 88% lower than it was in the spring. So there's some good news here. A lot of good things are happening. We're doing better treating the virus, but we're also doing a better job at, I think there's evidence that there's rising immunity and people are doing a better job fighting this off. And there's much more asymptomatic cases than there was in the spring.
So I want to play something for you in terms of the political side of this whole equation, because we did get this virus that was just announced in the days following the election. And I just want to play Dr. Fauci shortly before the election at the end of October, and then what he had to say this morning. Very different tone from him in these 2 sound bites. Listen for yourself.
I think it will be easily by the end of 2021 and perhaps even into the next year before we start having some semblances of normality.
Help is really on the way. If you think of it metaphorically, the cavalry is coming here. Vaccines are going to have a major positive impact. If we could just hang in there, do the public health measures that we're talking about, we're going to get this under control.
I mean, that's a pretty diametrically opposed statement and in every way from Dr. Fauci, Senator.
I've always said that I want to believe that he is well-intentioned, but I think he's biased in the sense that he believes in government solutions. He believes that submission and lockdown are fine. He's not too worried about individual liberties, but he also tends to gloss over the science because we've had this debate back and forth about immunity. And I've been saying all along that I think that children have some sort of pre-existing immunity. The tests are now backing me up on this. There was an article in Science just in the last 2 weeks saying that kids have antibodies to coronavirus colds and that there's cross-reactivity that seems to be protecting them. But the other thing is we have 11 million people in our country who have already had COVID. We should tell them to celebrate. We should tell them to throw away their masks, go to restaurants, live again, because these people are now immune. But Dr. Fauci doesn't want to admit to any of that. Dr. Fauci's like, oh, woe is me, until the election occurs, and now maybe he'll be changing his attitude. But the bottom line is there's a great deal of optimism that we should have out there, not just with the vaccine, but with the immunity that kids may have pre-existing and with the immunity that 11 million people got from having the disease.
Yeah, but they're not treated any differently. Nobody treats it like there's an antibody that is actually valid, Dr. Paul. I mean, it's really interesting to me. And there's even a suggestion that all of those folks should probably consider getting immunized as well.
Yeah, and I'm not against them ultimately being immunized. I've had it, and I may someday take the vaccine, but I'm going to let the vulnerable people, the people over 80, the people over 70, the people who have diseases, kids don't need to be first in line either. The death rate for kids is less than the seasonal flu for this. So kids can wait a long time or until there's plenty of vaccine. Let's vaccinate the vulnerable. But let's don't ignore that those of us who have it have immunity. When they test to see whether the vaccine makes antibodies, they use the people who've had the disease as the positive control to say, what does it look like to somebody who gets natural immunity?
Yeah. If there was no immunity, there would be no vaccine theory at all.
Exactly.
So, in terms of the lockdown, what you hear from this gentleman, Dr. Osterholm, who's going to be on Joe Biden's task force, President-elect's task force, he says, maybe a 6-week lockdown nationally would be a good idea. What do you think?
It scares me to death because, but I think it's consistent with their philosophy. In a free society, individuals make their decisions based on risk, and they will make their choices on how they choose to, whether they drive a car, whether they go to a restaurant, whether they wear a mask. These would be individual decisions. But in authoritarianism, the central authority tells you what to do and when to do it. So these are the same people who also believe in socialism, a command and control economy where the government dictates all of your economic behaviors. So it's not much of a stretch to believe that they would also dictate your personal behavior as well.
All right, Senator Rand Paul, thank you very much. Good to have you here tonight, sir.